One would be forgiven to think that the Daughters of Charity started here in Fair Street. But we must travel back in time to William Street and Harper House. The Daughters of Charity came to Ireland in 1855 and they set up their first house here in Drogheda in Harper House. I'm standing here on Fair Street in front of the home for so many years of the Daughters of Charity of St. Vincent de Paul. The Daughters of Charity were set up by St. Vincent de Paul and St. Louise de Marillac in France in 1633. Archbishop of Armagh in 1855, Dr. Dixon, invited the Daughters to Ireland. The Daughters of Charity were involved in many religious outreaches in this area, including education and caring for children with nobody to care for them. While the Daughters of Charity are no longer operating here in Drogheda, they are still present in about 25 houses around Ireland. The Daughters of Charity continue in 93 countries. They are present on all 5 continents around the globe. While the work here in Drogheda may have come to an end in recent times, the Daughters of Charity and their influence will live on for many generations to come.
Drogheda Community Services Centre was founded in 1970 by James Crowley, and there were 7 founding members, of which Sister Anne Brady was one of the founding members from the Daughters of Charity. I'm actually looking at a very rare photograph here of Sister Anne, the only one we have, and Dermot Kieran's actually gave it to me and said, mind that with your life, don't lose it. The Community Services Centre was to purchase a building. They were based renting a premises in Palace Street beside the Old Credit Union there, and with the support again of the Daughters of Charity, they purchased St. Vincent's School in Fair Street, really through the help and support of the Daughters of Charity in Drogheda in Blackrock. And that sale went through in January 1974. And they continued the work here, running various services. But I think in 1984, Dermot Kieran's actually wrote to the bursar at the time, who was Sister Olivia, asking for support for the services here in Drogheda, and to see what other way the Daughters of Charity could become involved. Now, there were various sisters who joined the board of directors. So there was Sister Sheila Brown, there was Sister Olive was on the board from 1984 to 1986, and then Sister Mary Cobley joined in 1987, and she was there until 2009. Up until then, in the 70s and early 80s, the daycare centre was more of a social centre, and it was called the Golden Days Club. And they had an afternoon where, you know, older members of the community would come in and have a cup of tea and have a chat, and they'd organise maybe Christmas parties or a summer outing. So in 1984, Dermot wrote to Sister Olivia, who was bursar at the time in the Daughters of Charity, asking her to consider, or the sisters, ways of supporting kind of the social work aspect of the services, and in particular what help could be afforded to the running of a daycare centre. In March of that year, Sister Pauline from the Daughters of Charity wrote to Dermot Kieran's and said that Sister Gertrude Mannion, a nurse who has a nice, warm and welcoming disposition, would be delighted to move to Drogheda to run the daycare centre. Dermot Kieran's wrote back to Sister Pauline saying that they were absolutely delighted that you're releasing Sister Gertrude Mannion to us in the Community Services Centre. Sister Gertrude then became very involved in setting up the daycare centre. And actually, I mean, they were starting from scratch, so there was nothing other than being able to make a cup of tea. So she developed bathing services. There was a laundry services where people could come in, that the washing would be done, because a lot of, in Drogheda at the time, there was a lot of people didn't have washing machines, drying facilities, shower facilities. There were still outdoor bathrooms. So, I mean, this was a godsend to a lot of older people in the town. So it was greatly welcomed, the service. And then in 1984, because the services were getting very busy and it needed more space, Dermot Kieran's again wrote to the Daughters of Charity and asked them would they consider selling the building which was known as Villa Maria, which is the large red brick building in the centre of Fair Street, which I understand is going to be the new municipal centre. It was originally last used by the housing of the boat people in the 1970s. So again, the Daughters of Charity were wonderful, and they sold the building at a very nominal amount to be paid over a 15-year period with no interest. That's what you're talking about. That's the legacy of the Daughters of Charity in Drogheda. So Villa Maria was officially opened actually by Barry Desmond in 1985, and at that stage the daycare was offering bathing, chiropody, reflexology, hairdressing, social services, social activities and entertainment. Really the services that we're still offering today. So I mean, that's how far back the work goes. And all of this was provided on a voluntary basis by professionals. And it noted in the minutes that Sister Gertrude had 4 nurses, 2 voluntary chiropodists, 2 hairdressers, a reflexologist and an exercise instructor working under her. And I did note that in the report, at the end of the year report in 1986, again, Dermot Kieran said a special word of thanks must be given to the Daughters of Charity. Not only have they continued to be a major source of assistance in the operation of the daycare and in the running of the trust on the board of directors, but in keeping with the Christian charity, they have allowed us to purchase the building of Villa Maria and Valhalla, which is the hall at the back, on the basis over a period of 15 years. So, I mean, it was publicly acknowledged the whole time, their support. In January 1989, the daycare had to move again into the back hall, which was known as Valhalla, because there were so many people wishing to avail of the services, and the rooms in Villa Maria were too small to accommodate the numbers. So again, Sister Gertrude really demanded more space, and there was a large hall out the back, and with various fundraising activities and donations from the government, Minister Ahern came down and officially opened it. Sister Gertrude, as well as having great medical expertise and the caring of the members of the daycare, and was able to advise them, and mind them, and the work just didn't stop here. But she was also a great recorder of the history of the daycare, and one of our favourite things was taking photographs, and you would often see Sister Gertrude with the camera in her hand going around snapping people and taking and recording the memories of the parties and the Christmas parties, or whenever there was a big birthday. I mean, I suppose in those years, people getting to 70, 80 years of age was a huge thing, and it was greatly celebrated with a cake on the day of the person's birthday. you know, the board were concerned about the workload for Sister Gertrude and did write to Sister Catherine Mulligan in Dublin, asking for maybe help or support for Sister Gertrude, and they very kindly seconded Sister Josephine Flynn, who took up duties in September 1999 to support initially Sister Gertrude. And Mary Clark, the manager at the time, did actually know, there was a note there that she was slightly worried about the easing out of Sister Gertrude when Sister Josephine takes over, because Sister Gertrude really had a finger on the pulse, really. And I have to say, Sister Josephine was very gentle in the transition. And Sister Gertrude did retire to Dublin. Sister Gertrude Mannion, give her a full title, celebrated her Golden Jubilee here in September 98, and then she retired from here in about 1999. But the daycare members were heartbroken when she left, but they did give a presentation of a lovely camera, the state-of-the-art camera at the time, and she was absolutely delighted with that. It started 2004, 2005 was the building of this centre. The problem, it was that building was so old and there were so many problems because of needing more space and the demands on the daycare services. The decision was taken by the board to build purpose-built community centre and daycare centre, and that building took place between 2004 and 2005, and we finally moved up in here in 2006. And I have to say again, Sister Josephine Flynn walked the site with Dermot Kieran's on many occasions, and was very involved really in the nitty-gritty of picking out all the furniture and the tables and the cloths for the daycare and what would be most suitable and the height for older members. And she went around visiting. I have pictures here of all the old daycare centres that she visited all around the country with herself, and Dermot went round and getting ideas. And then she has everything written down in this book that you would ever want: the curtains, the length, the windows, the coffee table, where she got it, how much it cost. So if we needed to replace something, you know, we could just look, and everything is recorded meticulously in Sister Josephine's book. Well, look, Sister Josephine came here in 1999 and was here up until 2007. And I mean, she's left a huge legacy here. I'm walking around this building. It's so beautiful, so comfortable. It's state of the art. You can literally eat your dinner off the floor. It's so clean, and you know that legacy is continued to this day. Oh no, that's not good enough, Sister Josephine. You know, we better do that again. So that continues to this day. And finally, in 1985. Dermot Kieran's became the first lay director of the Community Services Centre, and there was also, he assisted by Canon Nelson. Canon Jim Nelson was very involved in the parish and Church of Ireland, and he was very involved in the board of directors for years, and would attend here on a daily basis and come in and meet with Sister Gertrude and Sister Josephine, really, and just check up to see if there was anything that was needed. So we have the Canon Nelson suite is called after him, and in the centre, this is the name of the daycare. Over the wall of the daycare centre, you'll see the Canon Nelson suite, in recognition of his many years of service. And then, of course, the Dermot Kieran Centre is over the front of the building. But I suppose the point I wanted to make is that the board of directors are really deeply indebted to the Daughters of Charity for their contribution their support by way, not only financial support down through the years, but also the participation in the board of directors, and also by the secondment of matrons, which really changed the whole ethos of the Community Services Centre, and was such an important aspect of the work here. Because without their skills, their medical knowledge, and they were always looking out for new ideas and what was best for older people. Like we had the first bathing facilities in the town, we had the first multi-sensory unit in the town, so they were innovators. We are deeply indebted and grateful for everything that the Daughters of Charity have given, not only to the Community Service Centre, but to the people of Drogheda.
How I became involved with them was 1985. I was asked to do a budgeting cookery course with people from Moneymore. Dr. Ted Fleming, who was involved with the education in Louth County Council, asked me if I would do it. So some women from Moneymore came to the community centre in Fair Street, which was formerly the Daughters of Charity building. And I was given courses there on how to cook on a budget. And the women came and I had their children with them. And shortly after I had started doing that, Sister Mary Corbally came to Drogheda, and she approached us and said she would mind the children while I was doing the course with the women. So that gave us more time with them. So when the cookery was over, we'd sit and talk. We'd get somebody to come in and talk to the women about what they needed to know. And Sister Mary was always very available to help out. We did the course for about 10 weeks and then another 10 weeks. And we thought that it'd be nice if we could get a house in Moneymore. I knew there was a house becoming vacant, and we approached Brendan Hoy, who was the town clerk at the time. And Sister Mary and I asked him if there was a possibility that we could get the house in Moneymore. He was very good with us and always helped us out, and he said that he could see us getting it, but we'd need somebody to be a trustee of it. And Sister Mary offered that she would talk to the headquarters of the Daughters of Charity, the Mother House, to see if they would take it on as trusteeship. And they did. So we got Moneymore House. Sister Mary was brilliant. She gave every minute of the day to the people of Moneymore. She organised classes. She did outings with them. She got very friendly with the mothers and the parents in Moneymore and helped out many families that nobody'd ever know about. She was very private in a lot of work she did. She loved the children. She really loved seeing the children getting on, and the children loved her. She organised trips up to Butlins, as I'm calling it, but it was Mosney, and they did swimming up there. She got courses done for the adults, both men and women, assertiveness courses. I organised classes, maths classes and English classes, and Noel Keane, who was the vice principal of the Christian Brothers, taught maths in it. The maths that he taught was the maths that the children would do for homework. So he explained the homework to the parents so they could help the children. There was a lot of women up there that were brilliant, like of Tina Carney, Marie Russell. There's so many more took on to help out. We did surveys there with Sister Mary's help. We did a survey on how the people found Moneymore, what was missing from it, what they could do for it. And that survey was done about 30 years ago. There was a survey done about 3 years ago, and it showed up exactly the same concerns as the first survey, but nothing was done in between to help those people from the first survey to the second survey. They pointed out then about the drugs in the first survey, that it was going to get bad. There was no work for the young people. There was no apprenticeship schemes, no apprenticeship training centre. All that was pointed out. But now I think it's going to change. There is going to be apprenticeships in the town, and part of that would be from Sister Mary's input into what we were trying to do in Moneymore. She was a brilliant woman. She was sadly missed. She was a great friend. She was a great ambassador for people, for respect for people, for a religion. She had great faith. She believed in people, no matter how bad they were. She believed there was good in them, and she would try to get that good out of them. I loved working with her. I loved getting her phone calls, ask what can we do. She did everything she could for it. And if it's anything to do with the Daughters of Charity, she was always there to help the people of Moneymore, and indeed other people in the town. I know she's done other work outside of that, and on a very confidential basis too. Her assistance and her help will be recognised for many years by many people. One of the legacies that was left by the Daughters of Charity, I believe, is the homeless aid help that was given to people. I remember Sister Koch and Roisin Carton used to bake and cook and bring down food to the men, particularly men, in a house down past Green Hills. Roisin would have 4 pots on, boiling and making dinners for them and rushing down, and Sister Koch was there with her. They were 2 people that did Trojan work for the homeless aid, and I believe it was the Daughters of Charity with Roisin that helped set up the homeless aid house. Could be wrong, but I really do believe it was that. They were great people. Sister Koch was very helpful to all the homeless people and would have taken them in and worked with them.
Drogheda Homeless Aid, the official name of the hostel would be St Joseph's, and it owes its origin to the far-sightedness of the Sisters of Charity. Its main business is to house homeless men. There is another organisation in Drogheda which looks after women, and we house men who have absolutely nowhere else to go. So over recent years, I mean, it's quite difficult to work out how many people come into a hostel exactly, but roughly 120 people come each year. Now, some of those are people who've maybe been in the hostel, been out, and it hasn't worked out. But if we say that roughly we've accommodated 120 people a year, you're talking about maybe 4,000 since we started collecting records, which was about the turn of the century. So that's 4,000 people who would otherwise have had absolutely no help and support accommodated by us. And we also have, as well as our main hostel where we accommodate most people, we also own a number of houses around Drogheda which give further accommodation to people. So when people are more settled, they move out to houses where they're able to live independently and build up the skills to moving out. So we've actually got larger over the years, and we've also, in recent times, we've taken on providing Meals on Wheels. So we do a Meals on Wheels delivery service. So we offer people a bed and warmth and shelter, but we do offer quite a lot more than that. So everyone who comes in is allocated a key worker who will take their history, will get to know the person, will identify the particular problems that have made them homeless, which might be mental health, it might be addiction to alcohol, it might be addiction to drugs, it could be simple bad luck, it could be a landlord selling up and somebody not having enough money, it could be problems with the law, it could be and very often relationship breakdowns. So we offer to work with somebody to try and work out the problems, look at the problems that have made them homeless, and put together a plan for getting them back in accommodation. Now that is getting much more difficult in recent years, because there is a crisis in this country of homelessness like there's never been before. So in that sense, the work of Drogheda Homeless Aid, which was the brainchild of the Sisters of Charity, it goes on after the Sisters of Charity have pulled out, and that is the legacy of one of the legacies of the Sisters of Charity, for which I am, in my position, particularly grateful.
The residents of Moneymore should be very proud of the childcare centre they have up there. It's a purpose-built childcare centre, and the views of all the residents were asked about how to build it and what they needed in it. And that all developed from the Moneymore Community House, when a few people in the community house thought they could help. Carmel Hatch, I think, was one of the ones that thought about it. And she came in on a Friday morning and took care of the children while the parents went down shopping. There was no fee charged, she just was there to help them. And it gradually got so popular that we decided that we'd open a creche in Moneymore, number 43. The creche was opened there, and again it expanded so much that we had to get 2 houses from the health board, I think it was, and the rooms were made bigger there. And they did a homework club in it. There were so many other things in it, as well as just the childcare. And then from that, then the new childcare centre was built. And it's worthwhile seeing the layout of that childcare centre, and the love and the respect and the devotion that the people working there are given to the children of Moneymore. It has been a great help to both the children and the parents. And I believe that the parents of the children there really do appreciate the work that the women are doing up in Moneymore. And indeed some of the men too. We did gardening classes in it. We did very practical classes up there. And it has helped and sustained many of the families who would often talk about it now when I'd meet them downtown or whatever. I remember at one stage when we were talking about the play school, that we wanted to build a good play school that would be sustainable. And Sister Mary and the council, the committee of Moneymore, we went up to Armagh to see how a play school in Armagh was run. I think it was called the Farmyard Play School. But we realised that the Education Authority give them money to do it, whereas we would have to start off on our own. We went then to the planetarium, and we brought the committee round. We were received by the Mayor of Armagh at the time, and in fact there was a reciprocal arrangement that they came down and visited Drogheda. The legacy that the Daughters of Charity left here is beyond belief in many ways. It's touched on in many parts of our lives without us realising it. I recall when I came to Drogheda first in 1967, going over to the Daughters of Charity to visit the Daughters of Charity, and I was shown round the orphanage as it was then, and the care and attention that they give to the young people there. I was very impressed with it. Then they moved on to the community care. They got involved in everything in the community willingly. But I know that Sister Mary and the Daughters of Charity, if I requested anything for them, for anyone, I was given what I asked for to help the family or to help the person. It was anonymously given, and nobody is aware of what they have done. I'd like to feel that their legacy is remembered by people who they've helped, people who they have shown respect to, and people who they've encouraged to get on with their lives and to be confident citizens of Drogheda.
A group of women back in 1985 met, and they used to meet in their own houses to start up a women's group. Now, a lady in the town, Anna McKenna, she organised it with down in Fair Street then, to meet once a week, and relevant people would be brought in to talk to the ladies, which may well have been a public health nurse. There might have been some cookery lessons. There may have been somebody from the housing department, just to talk through issues that people in the area would have had. And that started the original group. Of course, there was the women had their children, and Sister Mary Cobley, who was a community nun from the Daughters of Charity, she minded the children so that we could have these talks without the children. And that became the first, like, what would you say, creche. And from there, Sister Mary Cobley ran with the whole process of childcare, from a drop-in creche to a full daycare centre. Now, to get back to the beginning in 1985, because the women were meeting in their own houses, the group met with the local authority, it was the Drogheda Borough Council at the time, and asked if they could have a house for a meeting place for women and to do some activities. And they agreed, and in 1986 the Drogheda Borough Council rented this house, number 43, to the Daughters of Charities, who agreed to be the trustees at the time. So that began a whole process of classes and encouraging people to get involved in the community and for women to get out of the house. So lots of classes happened in the beginning, and Sister Mary was the person who organised them. She liaised with the VEC, and they gave us some teachers, and they did art classes with us, and it was paid by the VEC. And but the idea was to empower people to continue with this, to teach them the skills so that they could then be the teachers and involve the rest of the community. And that's how it began. Now, the classes that were held here in this house at the time there was assertive classes, personal development, there was cookery classes, there was sign language classes, then we wanted to get the men involved. And so, which was very hard to get men involved in class, but we did through classes like marquetry and DIY. Now, the very successful classes through the VEC were maths and English classes, because there was a lot of parents around who just could not help their children with homework, usually because of the age where children left school at 12 or 14 and went to work. And now they were parents and didn't have the skills to help their children to do homework. So classes for that began here. And two women at that time went and did the Leaving Cert from learning, you know. They didn't get the opportunity when they were younger because they were took out of school and put to work, because that's what happened with everybody in the 60s, 70s, whatever. On a Friday morning, Sister Mary began a drop-in creche here. And this was the start of a whole legacy that followed. She knew from the women's issues that they needed to go to a doctor on their own. They needed to do their shopping on their own without their children. So every Friday morning here, there was a drop-in creche. Sister Mary loved it, you know. She loved having those different age groups of children. She roped me in at the time, got me involved in it at that time. So as did with Carmel, another lady who can't be here today. And we ran it here. We ran this room and the kitchen. And it was great. The women just absolutely loved a couple of hours to go down to town, do their shopping, or even go to a doctor, which was mostly what they needed to be doing without their children at that time. So from that, now the classes were still continuing in the meantime, and from that came after schools. That was a massive, massive encouragement for somebody to come in here and actually take the children in after school and give them a quiet place to do homework. And the children were going into school with their homework done, and the idea was to stop children being left at the bottom of the class without anything. And they were now coming in with their homework done, with the skills of being able to participate in the classroom then. And the idea, another idea behind that was it would stop children from dropping out of school. That would have been the thought throughout the day. As you can see through this room here, the homework club is still ongoing. And that is run in the community house here houses it. We don't run it. We have a board of management, but it's Boomerang, Edel Fairclough, who runs the homework club here. But we just house it for them, for the children of the area. And that's still ongoing very successfully. The Daughters of Charity were still the trustees of the house. And it was only in the later years that when we kind of, I'm going to say a word like maybe proved ourselves, that a group of people in the estate were able to do it, well then the Daughters of Charities kind of pulled out from the trusteeship. Sister Mary was still here, still going around, she was a visiting nun, and she visited all the families, and she encouraged people to send their children to the creche, and then we became the trustees then of the community house as is now, and we also are, it's run by a board of management. So every morning here we had a creche, a play group it was called at the time, and that went on for 5 days a week. And from that, this place then began to be too small for the childcare because we had a waiting list of children to come in. So a house became available further down in the estate, and it was a 4-bedroom house, so the area was bigger, and so we were allocated that for the playgroup. We were then able to have 2 sessions, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, as well as the after schools. Money became available from, and it was at that time it was through the Justice, Quality and Law Reform, and the money became, capital money became available to build creches, to address that need, to get people back to work. So we did a survey, and the surveys, people said, yeah, they'd definitely go back to education maybe, or definitely go back to work. So we went for that capital funding, and we were granted it, and we built. We got the land from the Drogheda Borough Council. It's over here, we're going to go over there in a few minutes. And we built a full daycare. So we went from a creche to a sessional playgroup to a full day childcare centre. That opened 15 years ago last week. So that's Sister Mary's legacy. Sister Mary, not only was she in here as a visiting nun from the Daughters of Charity, she also did massive work for the Vincent de Paul. And she knew people, she knew what their needs were. You know, she knew what to encourage them to do, you know, to come in and join this class or that class, or even just to get a break for a couple of hours without their children. But she knew who needed it, you know, because she knew by visiting houses, you know, that's what it was. But apart from the childcare aspect of it, and apart from the other activities that everybody attended, she also ran summer projects. Now, the summer projects at that time, now I'm going back to, and I'll update you on what's happening now, but at the time, I'm going back a few years, in the beginning when she was heavily involved in the estate, summer projects were busloads of kids being brought off by some leaders. It wasn't, you know,
have to supervise now.
It was before the whole insurance claims and all of that. We're going back where we could bring kids out to Doonaree for the day, out to the smaller ones, out down to Clara Lara. They were great days. And it just fill up a few busloads and off we'd go. Mosney was a great hit. Now, the leaders was minding bags all day and the kids was off playing. They loved it. But if you ask any of the children who grew up in the 80s what they want now, for second generation that lives here, they want what they had when they were young. That's all they want. They want what they had. They want the community spirit that was there, and they want the children, their children, to have what they have. a couple of years ago they put Moneymore forward for the an estate pride. Now we didn't win it, but we came together as 3 or 4 groups, and from that we are now looking to build a new building in Moneymore, and all the projects, including the after school club, will move to that. It's at early stages, but we have the land, but we're still at early stages. That's another story, a great story.
Yeah, we're going back to when Sister Mary was a distributor of the Beef Mountain and the Butter Mountain, and when
Cheese. Cheese.
Cheese Mountain, when she'd have all those things, she would come up to Tina or myself, and she would distribute them to us, and we, as our second in command, technically speaking, would deliver them to what we thought was the best people to encourage them, you know, to eat with it. You know, with this size, we'd cut them into portions, and people would really avail of them. The beef was particularly lovely. I did have one myself. I had a big family because I did qualify, but the butter was just as good. And then sometimes she might come in with 100 tomatoes. So the estate, you know, 6 people or a few people on the estate might get just 6 tomatoes, but they love them. Or they might get the buns from a function from the night before, and everybody loves their jam donuts and the ring. So the ring donuts, you know, they were delicious.
Yeah.
And, you know, Sister Mary became, oh, was Sister Mary here today if the donuts were for tea? And she left a lot of lovely, loving memories.
Other things that Sister Mary is well known for is our weekends away in Sea Point in Feck, and the nuns owned a house out there. And her first involvement in that was when the children that attended the playgroup at the time would be brought away for a weekend. And Sister Mary used to do all the cooking, and the school play school leaders would do all the minding of the children. They absolutely loved it. Buckets and spades were all got for the sand, and you know, all they wanted was a bucket and spade and the sand. In Lentown House there was also slides and swings and tennis court, and they just had a ball, absolute ball. One of the priests, Father Clayton Lee, they came from that road, and he'd come up and he'd say some prayers and mass with the children. Now, it would be all the children sitting up on the ground in the altar singing songs. They'd be singing things like The Wheels on the Bus and that, you know. It was fabulous. Absolutely loved it. So she didn't just bring the children out there for a break, but the parents was also invited out as well, out there. So yeah, we would go out there. We would, she wouldn't be with us to cook. We had to do our own cooking, obviously. But many a weekend was spent out there by the parents as well. And that would be our first introduction to getting away from the children and the whole estate, and getting away on our own and having a good time, a good weekend away. So she really, really had the whole family included in all of her, and all the activities that she created, like from the creche to the summer projects to the after schools, and of course to all the parents were all involved in all the work she did. When the need for childcare came with waiting lists, we then moved, as I was saying, down to our new building that we're going to go down to now. So, and that would be her baby, as we'll say. In our next board meeting that we're going to have shortly, we are actually what we're going to do is, it's called Moneymore Childcare Centre. We are going to rename it, and we're going to rename it after Sister Mary. The name hasn't been finalised yet. We're still in discussion of what name, but that's what we're going to do. And we're also going to put some sort of a plaque up here in the house as well. She'll never be forgotten, and everybody loved her to bits. And yeah, so that's the least we can do now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So we will be renaming Marie.
Yeah, Sister Mary Cobble, you'll never be forgotten.
No, no.
basically we take care of children from the area and the wider local community. It's basically affordable childcare for parents who wish to go back to education, wish to go back to work. We have a lot of young families who want to go back to college, so they go to Diffie, or you know, would be getting back into the workplace basically. And we take care of them. We open from 8 in the morning until 6 in the evening to accommodate for all of that. We also take care of all of their meals. They're all prepped here fresh every day, from fresh ingredients from local producers. So everything is done kind of within the community. Well, we hope the childcare industry is very busy at the moment. We have a waiting list as long as we've ever had it. We could open 10 creches in Moneymore and you'd fill them. Particularly with babies. I don't know why we've had such a baby boom, but we've got like, the list is endless for children. So hopefully to expand a little bit. We've already expanded the hours. We didn't used to open all of those hours. So we've expanded those hours. We are looking at, we've gotten a new sensory garden, a new natural garden. We're looking at now doing a planting garden so the children can grow fruits and vegetables and seasonal flowers and all of that kind of stuff. And we're also looking at getting a new sensory room because there's a very high demand for children with additional needs. And we're very inclusive and we try to accommodate all of their needs within our playrooms so that so it's all inclusion. But certain children, they need some sensory, you know, they might have issues with noise and stuff like that. So we're hoping to get a sensory room done so that we can accommodate then for more children, say, with additional needs. Originally when the creche was started, it was always a full-time creche, but we'd very few full-time children. So we always would have had more sessional and part-time children, kind of here till 1, maybe 2 o'clock. Now we have doubled, maybe tripled the amount of children that are here full-time with us. We've taken on extra staff members. We also have girls that are employed with us through the Community Employment Scheme. So generally, when we have a vacancy, then we recruit from the pool of CE participants that and the majority of the girls that are here live and work obviously in the local area, so they would all know each other. And all of us started here on a community employment basis, myself included. We all started here doing the 3 years training and then just got employment with the community house. Yeah, I have to say, I've worked in creches since I'm 18. Since I left school, I've worked in creches. I worked in creches when I lived in Dublin. I was the manager of a creche up there. This is by far the best creche that I've ever worked in. And I'm not saying anything about private creches, obviously, like they're brilliant and, you know, they all do great jobs. All the childcare workers do great jobs. But this creche in particular, I don't know, there's an atmosphere in it. There's just a real sense of community and family. Any fundraising that we've ever had to do, like we fundraised a couple of years ago to get our roof fixed. We did a Strictly Come Dancing, and I have to say the amount of support we got from the community around here was second to none. I've never seen anything like it, and it gave a real buzz to the community for like the months that it was going on. We were practicing over here. You know, it was really good, and I'm an outsider, but I really felt like I've always felt like part of the community here. It's brilliant. I love it.